not sustainable. Thank you.
Mr Speaker.
Ian McKelvey.
Mr Speaker, as a sheep farmer, it gives me a bit of pleasure to, I guess, speak to something that concerns what I term the other half of the industry. As a sheep farmer, I also know the danger of a fragmented industry, and I don't think for a minute that this government will be endeavouring to fragment the dairy industry. At this point, having said I'm a sheep farmer, I must declare an interest in this, however, as I do have an interest in Fonterra through family interests. Nonetheless, I need to now refute a couple of the extraordinary things I've heard in the last quarter of an hour. And the last speaker, I didn't hear her refer once to the bill. I don't know what fresh water's got to do with this bill. Frankly, I think nothing. I think, however, if you look at the strength of Fonterra and if you look at the strength of the dairy industry, the best chance we've got of resolving some of the issues that the Green Party talk about is to ensure that Fonterra remains strong, because they will be able to put money into research and development and certainly overcome a lot of those issues that the Green Party are obsessed with talking about. I also want to refute a claim that the previous Labor Speaker made about the 4 months and the reason for this bill being pushed through the Select Committee process faster. It's certainly got nothing to do with precluding opportunity to speak or to hear the matters concerned in this bill. It's simply a matter of letting the industry get on with its business in the new financial year, and if this bill doesn't get through Parliament in time, it's going to inhibit the industry's ability to develop and grow. The great progress and changes since Fonterra's inception have brought about the need for change in this Act, and I don't think there's any doubt that the significant growth in this industry in that time also means we need to change this Act and make progress for the future. We're talking about amending an Act that's been in place for nearly 10 years. And we must remember also in the process of amending this Act that farmers asked for this Act in the first place. They asked for this Parliament to assist them to form Fonterra. It's necessary as a result of that for this Parliament to continue to regulate Fonterra in one form or another. We don't have any choice, in my view. We have a responsibility to the New Zealand community to continue to reform and act on this Dairy Industry Act, and consequently the amendment to it, the Dairy Industry Restructuring Act. The industry is challenged by being by far the biggest industry in New Zealand. It's by far the biggest contributor to this country's well-being. And I think inevitably in New Zealand we tend to look at big and successful organisations just like we look at big and successful sports people and knock them off their perch from time to time. I think that's a tragedy for Fonterra and for the dairy industry in New Zealand. I think we need to be giving Fonterra all the assistance we can to ensure that they're able to compete in New Zealand, to compete internationally, and to look after their large number, as the member for King Country talked about, the large number of shareholders that Fonterra has. As I said a minute ago, Fonterra have a great ability, because of their strength and the unity of that company, to reinvest a large amount of their spare or surpluses in research and development, an absolutely critical area for New Zealand agriculture, not only for the dairy industry but for New Zealand agriculture. So to encourage the strength of Fonterra from that respect is also equally important. I think to talk of the risk to Fonterra from outside investment is also flawed, and I think we need to remember, as the member for the Greens that spoke earlier talked about, that from time to time, even the New Zealand family farms need a place to park some assets for a while as they get through very difficult times. And the best solution for this in the dairy industry particularly is to be able to park your shares. If you can park your shares, avoids you needing to draw down larger debts from banking organisations and the like. And I think that absolutely they have to buy them back, and that's the opportunity they've got. That's not correct. The member for West Coast is getting a little bit confused. I think clearly you all go through in any business through times of difficulty, and I think this is an ideal way of assisting the development of this industry and the development of those farmers by allowing them to park shares in what will be known as the shareholding company. So I think it's a very good process for the industry to go through. Not only that, we must also remember that Fonterra needed an enormous amount of capital to survive and to continue to operate. And however strong we think the shareholders and the company is, inevitably, as we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years, companies come under stress, shareholders will come under stress, they'll need to find cash somewhere else, and if we don't form and put in place, as Clause 8 of the Restructuring Act puts in place, if we don't put in place a very strong policy and process for trading amongst farmers, as it's known, then I think we leave Fonterra at some risk. And I think, again, the scaremongering about the support for this part of the Act, from particularly New Zealand First and the Greens, is nonsense. There's absolutely no doubt that the majority of Fonterra's shareholders did and still support this part of the Act. They support it with some nervousness, and if the member from, I think she comes from Auckland, doesn't believe me, she can come with me to Taumarunui, to Fielding, stop and get some petrol, and you'll get bailed up by a dairy farmer on every corner in my electorate, and I'm sure you do in many of our other electorates. And you'll very quickly learn that they do, on the whole, support this. Like the previous speaker for National, they are a little nervous about some aspects of it, and that's why I welcome the opportunity to take this Act and look at it through the Select Committee process, parrot over there, look at it through the Select Committee process, which I'm sure will resolve a lot of the fear and the issues that some of our dairy farmers have about it. So the next issue I want to get onto very briefly, Mr Speaker, is Clause 13 relating to the base milk price and the way this is set and the way that it and I think you've got to realise the relationship between the base milk price and the value of the shares is absolutely critical to the future of this industry. And so it's most important that this is regulated. It's regulated now to some extent. It's most important that this is regulated because it enables us to see a transparent milk price setting process, and at the same time takes the onus or the value of the share and places it to one side in that process. So it's most important that this is transparent as well as we go through this process. So, Mr Speaker, as I said, I look forward to this bill going to the Select Committee. I look forward to the submissions, and as I said, I'm also stopped in streets all around my electorate to talk about it, so I'm sure that will ensure that what comes through in the form of submissions is very strong. We must ensure the bill eventually appears in Parliament in a form that satisfies the needs of our dairy farmers, the industry and the country. We know our responsibility to our number one industry, and we must continue to foster it. So, Mr Speaker, I've got no problem supporting this bill going to the next stage, and I look forward to the debate in the Select Committee as well. Thank you.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, it's a pleasure to take a call in this bill and to recognise